History of my oldest ancestors of whom I am very proud descend. July 24, 950, on her husband's death, Mumadona Diaz, my 33rd grandmother, 13 times my grandmother, shares the couple's domains with her children. The terra Portugalense is handed over to Dom Goncalo Mendes, sovereign count of Portucale comes it Dux Magnus Portugalii, my 32nd grandfather, 13 times my grandfather, 5 grandfather of Dom Afonso Henriquez, 1st king of Portugal. Mumadona Diaz, Countess of Portucale, was born in 900 and died in December 968. She was the daughter of Count Dom Diogo Fernandez and Countess Dona Oniga Garces of Pamplona, paternal granddaughter of Fernan Anchores, Count of Castile and Mumadona Moniz de Castrojeriz, and maternal granddaughter of Dom Garcia Iniguez, King of Pamplona, and Dona Yaraca Sanchez de Gascuna. Mumadona Diaz was Countess of Portucale and the most powerful woman of her time in the northwest of the Iberian Peninsula. Biography. Daughter of Count Dom Diogo Fernandez and Countess Dona Oniga or Oneca, possibly aunt of King Ramiro II de Leo, she was a famous and rich lady, the most powerful in the northwest of the Iberian Peninsula. She is recognized by several Portuguese cities due to her personality and action. Mumadona was married between 915 and 920 and before February 23, 926, when they appear together for the first time, with Count Hermenegildo Goncalves, my 33rd grandfather, 13 times my grandfather, however, starting to govern the county alone after the death of her husband between 943, when the count appears for the last time, and 950, the year when Mumadona, already a widow, shared the inherited assets with her children. Count Hermenegildo left it in possession of numerous domains, in an area that roughly coincided with areas that would become part of the later counties of Portucale and Coimbra. Between the second half of 950 and the beginning of 951, through pious inspiration, he founded, in his lands of Vimarais, a monastery under the invocation of Saint Mainde, Mosteiro de São Mainde or Mosteiro de Guimores, where he later professed. Shortly after 959, to protect this monastery and its people against the incursions of the Normans, he ordered the construction of the castle of Guimores, also called Castelo de São Mainde, in the shadow of which the town of Guimores developed, becoming the seat from the court of the Counts of Portucale. The testamentary document in which he donated his domains, cattle, income, objects of worship and religious books to the monastery of Guimores, dated January 26, 959, is important as it testifies to the existence of several castles and towns in the region. Due to incursions by the infidels, who had devastated the vicinity of the monastery, in the codicil dated December 4, 968, he handed over the castle to the monastery. Despite not being the founder of Póvoa de Varzim, Villa Uricini, and Villar do Conde, a Villa de Comite, her record is pioneering in including these villages for the first time. The toponyms of Aveiro, Suez Terras in Aloario et Salinas, and Felgueiras, in Felgueira Rubians Villa de Mori, also appear in Mumadona Diaz's testamentary document as the first to make written reference to these lands. Descent of Countess Mumadona Diaz with her husband Count Hermenegildo Goncalves, my 33rd grandparents, 13 times my grandparents. Dom Goncalo Mendes, sovereign count of Portucale Dux Magnus de Portucale, my 32nd grandfather, 13 times my grandfather, married to Dona Ilduara Pais, my 32nd grandmother, 13 times my grandmother, daughter of Dom Pio Goncalves, Count in Deza, and Dona Ermesinda Guterres. Dom Diogo Mendes, died after 968, married Dona Oldonca, and was the father of Mumadona Diaz, a nun in the monastery founded by his mother. Dom Ramiro Mendes, married to Dona Adecinda Guterres, daughter of Count Dom Guter Mendes and Dona Ilduara Eris. They were probably the parents of Queen Dona Velasquita Ramirez, the first wife of King Vermudo II. Dona Oneca Mendes, married before January 26, 959 to Dom Guter Rodriguez. Dom Nuno Mendes, died between 951 and 959, as he was still alive in 950, when his father's assets were distributed. He had already died by 959, when his mother made the endowment of the monastery of São Mainde and refers to his Dulcissimus Midipignas Nunnas. Dom Arias Mendes, died after 964. Dom Goncalo Mendes, sovereign Count of Portucale, comes it Dux Magnus Portugalii, my 32nd grandfather, 13 times my grandfather, was the son of Countess Mumadona Diaz and Count Hermenegildo Goncalves, Count of Portucale, member of the highest Galician Portuguese nobility who lived in turbulent times marked by revolts of the nobility, attacks by the Normans and the raids and devastation inflicted by the Muslim armies led by Almanca. Adversary of the King Sancho I, the Crassus and Ramiro III, he was one of the nobles who supported and elevated Ordonho IV and later Bermudo II to the throne. His granddaughter, Dona Elvira Mendes, was the wife of King Afonso V and the mother of Bermudo III and Queen Dona Sancha de Leo. After serving King Bermudo as his Armiger Regis from 993 and governing the territory of Braga, he died in 997 during Almanca's campaign against Santiago de Compostela. Family relationships. Dom Goncalo Mendes was one of the sons of Counts Hermenegildo Goncalves, an important Galician rich man, and Mumadona Diaz, who governed the county after the death of her husband. His paternal grandparents were the Counts Dom Goncalo Afonso Betote, Conde de Deza and Dona Teresa Eris, daughter of Dom Uro Fernandez, and the maternal Dom Diogo Fernandez and Dona Oniga Garces de Pamplona. Political career. His presence is recorded for the first time on July 24, 950 when Mumadona, now a widow, shared the inherited assets with his children. Dom Goncalo inherited the villages of Nespereira, Chagra, Sorto de Orcos and Frazoni. After the death of King Ordonho III, in 956, the kingdom of Leo was shaken by a succession crisis. Ordonho III was succeeded by his half-brother Sancho I, son of King Ramiro II ND's second marriage, instead of Bermudo II, son of the late king who at that time was a minor. In 958, in the second year of his reign, a group of nobles, including Count Dom Goncalo Saraiva, dethroned the king and elected Ordonho IV, while other nobles, including Dom Goncalo's father-in-law, Dom Pio Goncalves, supported King Sancho I, who regained the throne in 960, thanks to the support of his grandmother Queen Toda of Pamplona. Dom Goncalo Mendes appears for the first time with his wife Dona Ildua Pais in 964, donating the villages of Morera de Conegos and Castanheira, which he had exchanged with his sister-in-law Dona Adacinda for other estates, to the monastery founded by his mother Mumadona. He maintained his confrontation with King Sancho I, who in 966 invaded and devastated his lands. Around the year 968, Count Dom Goncalo Mendes faced Dom Rodrigo Vosquez, Count of Limia and powerful magnate, in the Battle of Aguioncha. It was the result of a dispute that had been going on for a long time between his mother and Dona Gontrodo, abbess of the monastery of Pazu, who had unduly taken the monastery of Santa Comba, belonging to the monk Odonio, who asked for Mumadona's help to recover it. Mumadona ordered his sons Dom Goncalo and Dom Ramiro to force Dona Gontrodo to return the monastery volens nolens, whether they want to or not. Dom Goncalo defeated Dom Rodrigo Vosquez, and it is suspected that he may have been responsible for the removal of Dom Rodrigo's son, Dom Pelagio Rodriguez, the Bishop of Iria Flavia. In 981, after the defeat of Christian troops in the Battle of Rueda against the army of Almanca, Count Dom Goncalo Mendes was the first to rise up against King Ramiro III, considered ineffective and incapable of dealing with Muslim incursions and invasions. Of the Vikings, Dom Goncalo and several nobles, most of them members of the High Galician and Northern Portuguese nobility, with the approval of the clergy, supported Bermudo Ordonez, the future King Bermudo II, married to Dona Velasquita Ramirez, niece of Count Goncalo Mendes. A few months later, Bermudo rebelled against Ramiro 3 degrees and, between the 11th of October and the 22nd of December 981, proclaimed himself King of Leo, as recorded in Count Goncalo's donation to the monastery of Lorvau on the last of those dates, where he signed as Gundisalius Menendez, and which was confirmed by Bermuda's Rex Prolix Domni Ordoni. The Count later clashed with King Bermudo, possibly after he had repudiated his first wife, Dona Velasquita Ramirez, but later, in 991, he appears again confirming the royal documents as a member of the Royal Curia of Bermudo II. From 993 he was a royal Armiger Regis, and governed the territory of Braga until 997, the year in which he died fighting against Almanca when it invaded Santiago de Compostela. Family and descent. Dom Goncalo Mendes, my 32nd grandfather, 13 times my grandfather, sovereign Count of Portucale comes it Dux Magnus Portugalii married Dona Ilduara Pais, my 32nd grandmother, 13 times my grandmother, daughter of Count Dom Pio Goncalves and Dona Ermesinda Guterres, daughter of Count Dom Guter Mendez and Dona Ilduara Eris. At least 5 children were born from this marriage, all documented. Dom Mendo Goncalves, my 31st grandfather, 12 times my grandfather, sovereign Count of Portucale, who died assassinated or in combat on October 6, 1008. He succeeded his father in the county and in the government of the territory of Braga. He married Tutor Dona Moniz, my 31st grandmother, 12 times my grandmother, also called Dona Toda, and was the tutor of King Afonso V during his minority, who later married one of his daughters, Dona Elvira Mendez. Dom Ramiro Goncalves, Count. Dom Rosendo Goncalves appears with the title of Count in 1014 in a trial where his sister-in-law Dona Toda was involved. Dom Diogo Goncalves, Count. Mumadona Goncalves. Dona Ilduara died before July 6, 983, when the Count already appears married to Dona Ermesinda. On that date, he increased a donation to the Guimaraes monastery and said that if his wife Dona Ermesinda survives him, that she will enjoy the Morera estate for the rest of her life. Dona Ermesinda, already a widow, appears again in the documentation in 1108. It is not known whether there were any descendants from this marriage.